Hey everybody, Mike DeAndre here, founder at DeAndre Financial. Today is November 12th, 2020, and in light of recent events that are taking place in Washington, D.C., I thought it would be helpful to share a few of the strategies that we use to help protect ourselves and our clients when there are significant political pivots that could be taking place. Over the next 90 days, there could be massive changes in tax and regulatory, in the tax and regulatory environment in Washington, and having a plan and a process to help us navigate that piece can be exceptionally helpful. But before we go into the investment components, I want to just remind everybody that as a nation, we have been here before, whether it was 1800, 1824, 1860, 1867, 1948, 2000, or today in 2020. Our nation has seen these challenges before. Rest assured, we have strong institutions. We are a republic with respect for the rule of law. We have plenty of attorneys, and I really think we're going to get through this just fine. But if you happen to be feeling a little bit anxious, that's totally understandable. And feeling anxious is a pretty natural and normal thing. But if we stay feeling anxious, it's just not healthy for ourselves or for our financial decisions. So what I want to do is share a few of the many strategies that we use to help mitigate that financial stress and give us a path that we can follow along the way. And it all begins with process. So a cornerstone at DeAndre Financial is that successful investing in any environment is rooted in process. It can be overwhelming to absorb the daily barrage of our 24-hour news feed and then translate those inputs into action. In order for a process to work, it must be able to quiet the noise and reveal a clear path. So to help us accomplish this, we developed a process that is consistent, repeatable, price-driven, and unemotional. This helps remove the anxiety and allows us to stay focused on the task at hand, which is to maximize return, dampen risk, and move us forward in achieving our financial goals. Now, to express these two components we'll discuss today, I have created an image that explains it thoroughly. Here you are. A beautiful ocean wave and two individuals in an arm wrestling match. Simple, isn't it? So I guess it would be fair for me to explain what those images actually mean. So the ocean waves represents momentum. And if you've ever been to the ocean, you've ever had the opportunity to play in the ocean, you understand the persistent, powerful, strong nature of ocean waves. Now, these waves can work for you if you are surfing or boogie boarding or just having fun jumping waves, and they can work against you if you happen to be stuck in a rip current. But what's undeniable is that the ocean has incredible momentum. Now, momentum can be defined as the quantity of motion of a moving body. But as investors, what really is most intriguing to me is the second component, which is the more momentum a moving object has, the harder it is to stop. So from an investment standpoint, momentum is when the price of a security outperforms its peers in the broad market. And this type of outperformance can persist for months. It can persist for many years. And so we want to be able to identify that momentum and then participate in that price appreciation. It's a pretty simple, easy game. Now would be a great time to cite an example of what that momentum outperformance might look like. So, lo and behold, what we have here is a study by John Lewis at NASDAQ Dorsey Wright going from 1950 to 2018, where he plotted the price movements of the two different categories, and they reveal a dramatic result. Over time, rotating from low momentum positions into high momentum positions has created an excellent opportunity to have an excellent investment outcome. The best part about it is we didn't need a single talking head because it's data driven, it's unemotional, it's repeatable, and it's consistent. And it's also a green line versus an orange line. But as we said, it's important to remember that momentum is a two-sided coin. It can be a blast while we're having a fun time surfing or riding a boogie board, but it can be terrifying and it can move against us dramatically if we're stuck in a rip current. And so from an investment standpoint, it's important that we find a way to tame momentum so that we can control our exposure and that we don't get too far out in the ocean and end up getting stuck. Okay? And the strategy that we use to help tame that momentum is relative strength. Relative strength, quite simply, is how strong something is relative to something else. Very simple concept. And to help us understand a little bit in a household example, something we're all familiar with, is to look at the NCAA basketball tournament. The NCAA tournament takes 64 teams, breaks them into 4 regions, 16 teams in each region, and then it ranks those teams from best to worst, number 1 seed to the 16th seed. And what we find is, over time, and this data goes back to the mid-'80s, the highest seeded teams have the best performance. First seeded team, the number 1 seeded teams participated in 56 Final Fours, 33 championship games, and won 21 tournaments. Okay, that's some exceptional outperformance. So if we can identify that in basketball games, maybe we can identify this and we can score and rank things in the investment world to help improve our probabilities of success. So same thing happens here. What we're looking at is a basket of indices, uninvestable indices. These are not ETFs or mutual funds, representing different sectors of the domestic equity market. And what we would want to do is identify where are the strongest components, where are the pieces where we would find the greatest momentum and the greatest price performance. And then we would want to identify where are the weakest components, the places that we would need to avoid. And then often what is left are these sort of meh type investments, things that are left in the middle that aren't particularly strong, they aren't particularly weak. But what we really want to do is we want to call out, we want to identify the extremes and separate them, okay? Because what we want to do is we want to tilt our portfolios consistent with our financial plan and consistent with our investment objectives and risk tolerance. We want to tilt our portfolios towards the strength of the market. And we can do this whether we're looking at treasury bonds, commodity groups, international sectors, whatever it may be. So to look at an example and how this can be exceptionally helpful as we pivot our portfolios, let's look at the probabilities over decades. Here we have the 1990s, where domestic equities was in first position. Then we have the 2000s, where international equities and commodities were in first position. And then we have from 2000 into 2017, where once again, domestic equities were in first position. So if we're trying to tip the scale in our favor so that we can identify the best opportunities, the best regions of the market, and then look for momentum within those regions, this type of ranking can be exceptionally helpful. And it can remove that stress and that anxiety that we're getting crammed down in the 24-hour news cycle that we're experiencing today. So by combining the forces with the power of momentum and the structure of relative strength, we can do a great deal to remove the anxiety that can be forced upon us in these times of uncertainty. Now, if this is a new concept to you and you'd like a second opinion or you'd like to learn more, you can reach out to DeAndreFinancial.com. There'll be a link on this screen somewhere where you can just tap it and go. And you can also call us at 240-285-9820. If you're a client, you'd like to schedule a review, be glad to chat and work through this process and see where things are for you personally. If you're a LinkedIn person and you'd like to connect on LinkedIn, you can search for Mike DeAndre CHFC on LinkedIn and be glad to connect there. But otherwise, what we're really trying to do is position ourselves to stay focused, unemotional, and keep working towards achieving our financial goals. I hope you have an excellent rest of the day and look forward to chatting soon. Take care.